Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, of a very special guest. Her name is Brooke Urick. Her last name is spelled Urick, and she just published a book in 2024, the end of 2024, full title. And you'll see the cover of the book if you're watching this on Rumble, X, Twitter, or Rockfin. The full title is Wink Wink Nudge Nudge: Sexual Exploits and Secrets from Inside a Sugar Daddy Website. And the subject matter might be a little risque, so I would recommend, not listening to this Not Around Kids. But it's an important, I think, subject for investigative journalists. She had really insight into the inner functionings of some of these websites that we know of. Like, if you follow my show, you know about Backpage, and maybe we were talking in the pre-show about Ashley Madison. But this is uh, definitely an industry. It's a real thing, and she can talk more about it. So, Brooke Urick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, William, and for taking on this topic. I know it's kind of tough to hear for a lot of people, but like you said, it is important. And I won't cover the risque things. If you want to get into the risque parts, I will let you read the book for yourself.
Or they can read, yeah, exactly. The listener can read it too, so
Yes.
they can get that. But it goes back, like you're in Vegas, still in Vegas. So Vegas is really, I mean, a nexus point for the trade, so to speak. And you started, I think, in 2013, 2012. Maybe you can just take people back to where you were, and we can go from there.
Certainly. I think Vegas does have a lot to do with where I was at that point in my life. And just in general, the sentiment that, prostitution isn't such a big deal. I think there's a common misconception that prostitution is legal in Las Vegas, which is actually not true. There are brothels in Nevada, and prostitution is legal at brothels in counties with less than 250,000 people. But Vegas, Clark County, of course, is not one of those. So it's actually not legal here. And when I was 21, I got introduced to, the fast lifestyle, clubbing, going out on the weekends, hanging out with the rich guys who were in town. And I became commodified as a young girl because when you go to the nightclub, the rich men don't want to spend lots of money if there's no pretty girls around. So the pretty girls are sort of a commodity in that way. And I was quickly kind of found myself in that lifestyle. So when one of my friends, my party friends at 21, told me that there was this website called Seeking Arrangement where you could find rich guys and find sugar daddies to just give you money, I didn't really think it was so far off from what we were already doing. And I was an early adopter of Tinder. So I was like, okay, maybe. But what really cinched the deal for me was this friend of mine back in 2013 told me that Seeking Arrangement was doing a reality show casting. So me, of course, thought that I was going to be a reality star. So that's actually why I joined the website in the first place, because I wanted to get cast on this reality show. And I was cast on the reality show, but it was not a reality show at all. They essentially told me to lie on camera and paid me money to do that. And that is how I got introduced to the people who worked for the company. And later I was recruited to work at the company as a PR representative. And then I became a spokesperson throughout my tenure there. So I think the reason that they elevated me to that position is because I was willing to lie on camera, which is basically what I did for the company.
Interesting. And that's kind of the way that they get these men into bars, is try, like, if you're a guy who's a bar promoter, is to get girls in there first, and then that draws the guys in who spend the money. So that's like an important part of the business, at least in Vegas for sure, or in any big city actually. um
Oh, yeah.
so you were on the site Seeking Arrangement, which became Seeking, right? So they dropped the second word. But where was the actual corporate headquarters of Seeking Arrangement?
Yeah, the company likes to shed its skin. They have for many years, and it's my opinion that they do that to obfuscate justice because, in my opinion, the website is criminal and they should be criminally responsible for what happens to the users of their website. But, they do things like drop the word arrangement and put little terms on their website, and they think that that is going to protect them. So, yes, the website headquarters was based in Las Vegas when I worked there. I don't think they're based here anymore. But yeah, I mean, I went into the office. It was like a pretty regular job, more or less. We just happened to be peddling a pseudo prostitution website and or pseudo dating website, I should say. Pretty much, it was just like a prostitution website, which is what I learned when I actually became a user because when I was 21, I truly thought that this website was, just a place where you go on dates and you meet rich guys and they might give you money, right? Which wasn't so far off from what I was doing already, just like living in Las Vegas. But what I quickly learned is it is a website for buying and paying for sex. And when I began working there in the PR department, they had this MO, which was to, quote, redefine the modern sugar daddy. And they successfully did that, which essentially means they tricked young, sometimes underage girls into lives of prostitution by touting this lie and myth of the sugar daddy, which is a man who just is, philanthropic and just wants to give you money and you don't have to do anything for that money. But the reality is you do have to do something for that money. And the thing is have sex, sometimes whether or not you consent to that. And the problem with the website is they use intentional anonymity to protect predators and to lead young women to believe that they have some sort of agency, over their dates and over what happens to them. But the reality is these girls are not pros. They don't want to be prostitutes. They don't think they're prostitutes. And if you told them that Seeking Arrangement is a website for prostitution and you may or may not get sex trafficked on the website, I don't think they would actually join, right? So I think a lot of people joined with the thinking that a sugar daddy is just, an old rich guy who's just going to give you some money. But that's just really not the truth. But that is the main lie that the website sort of hides behind.
Right. So that's the public facade, so to speak. But it really is. I mean, and there are arrangements that happen, but money doesn't always get exchanged. Is that true?
Sure. I mean, you can't paint all of the arrangements or situations that come off of the website with a broad brush. There are so many different nuances. And like I said, these people have their agency to set up their own dates and do their own transactions. The website, for intents and purposes, is a quote dating website. So they do not, as a company, they don't engage in any of the transactional nature of the website. And furthermore, they have completely removed any sugar daddy, sugar baby, money transaction talk from the website. Incomplete. They do not do any of that anymore. And it's my opinion that they did that because of the FOSTA legislation, which was enacted in 2018, and that's what shut down Backpage. So it's my opinion that they are trying to confuse people and make them think, oh no, we're not doing that anymore. Like that was bad.
Right.
And no, now we're clean now. But if you read the Congressional House of Representatives ethics investigation into Matt Gaetz, you don't have to take my word for it. You can just read and see what the United States Congress thinks of this website because they name it a few times and they specifically state exactly what's going on the website. So yeah, if you don't believe me or you don't want to take it from me, just take it from your elected representatives.
So Matt Gates, Gaetz, he was aware of kind of what was going on. Was he the one behind this legislation?
No.
Okay.
No, that's the cases are completely unrelated, and I don't know whether or not I mean, he probably knew about it, I guess, because he was like a congressman at the time. But no, with the legislation, it's called the Freedom of Human Sex Trafficking Act, or something to that effect, and it in effect shut down Backpage, which was a more overt classifieds website for prostitution.
Right. It's allow states and victims to fight online sex trafficking act.
Yes, it's a
That was
mouthful.
so yeah, they're FOSTA and SESTA. Luckily you have a glossary in the back, so I
Okay.
can figure this out. But how was the on seeking arrangement, how was so somebody would pay a fee, a monthly fee to get on the site, and that's how they would find their sugar mama. So the sugar daddy would come in to find the girls. Is that right? How much was the monthly payment
So
back then?
for the Sugar Baby users, there was no monthly payment required. Sugar Baby users could use the site for free. And there was like a premium membership, which included like, I think it was like ad free and there was like some extra added features or whatever. And they actually offered free premium memberships to students who signed up using their EDU email addresses. And that was a way to lure and coerce young college girls into this lifestyle. I think they've since stopped doing that, which begs the question, was it problematic that you were doing that, that you were offering free memberships to young, sometimes underage girls? I don't know. That's, something they'll have to answer to. But yeah, so the only members who had to pay for the website while I was working there were the Sugar Daddy members. So as you can see, the imbalance of power is not only between the members, but it's actually enforced by the way the website and the product is actually designed and curated to protect and to benefit the paying members, because those are who pay for the website. So the sugar babies were essentially expendable and got different lesser class treatment by the product design and the website itself, because the ones they were catering to were the sugar daddies, which of course are oftentimes predators and people who already are at an advantage because of their knowledge and their wealth and their status, power, age. Of course, most of these men are double the age of any of these young girls. So it's just a very, I mean, you think of it and you think, oh, like, ew, that sounds kind of yucky. But not only is it yucky, it's actually like criminal and disgusting and worse than you could ever possibly imagine. And I mean, that's why I wrote the book.
And how many users do you think were on there as far as like on the sugar daddy side and then on the female side?
When I was working there during 2014, we had like a big milestone, which was 1 million members. Okay, so that was back in 2014. And back then, the ratio, I think, was about one sugar daddy to eight sugar babies. So again, the imbalance of power is just reinforced again and again in so many ways. And so then by the end of my tenure there, it was 2018, and I believe there was 40 million members.
Oh,
So
so
there was just
huge usage.
an incredible exponential increase in members, but you have to also account for the fact that lots of people had multiple accounts. So it wasn't so I can't say there's 40 million people. I can say there was 40 million users. And the problem is that the users are anonymous. They are encouraged to be anonymous. And of course, as a 21-year-old, when I was joining this website, I thought, oh, that's to protect me because I don't want anyone stalking me. I don't want anyone to like know my real identity, right? But as I became older and began to learn the inner workings of the website, I realized that anonymity was to protect the predators and the men who do terrible things. And I mean, not just men, of course, there are all kinds of people, women, whoever, who do terrible things. I just am referring to the most common scenario. And of course, the one I experienced firsthand. And the user base, so if someone gets kicked off the website for whatever reason, they can just make another account, right? Because the website is anonymous. So at the beginning, it was my understanding, and I wasn't in like the actual customer support department, so I really don't know what was going on, but it was my understanding when I first started working there in 2014 that members who were bad, right, bad actors, were kicked off the website. Like, for instance, if a guy like does a horrible act to a girl, like, she would report him and he would get kicked off the website. And what I later learned while I was working there is that, they used to kick bad members off the website, but now they just make them agree to the terms of use again, because there was no point in kicking anyone off because it's anonymous. So they could just make another account. So anyway, all that to say, I think a lot of those 40 million users are probably duplicate accounts, probably scammer accounts. I would say a lot of them, are sort. I would say maybe like 1/4 of them probably are either duplicate accounts or like scammer accounts, or not actually like real users of the website. But that's just my like estimation.
Wow. And so then you were kind of like on the inside, but you kind of ran kind of training and saw PR and how kind of the business angle of it worked, right? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I started at the PR department as a PR coordinator, and I quickly learned how to lie to the media. They just kind of told me that, oh, that's just what you do. As a PR manager, you just like make up numbers and you just lie to people. And I knew that PR, there was spin. I knew it was kind of slimy. So at 22, when I first started that job, I was sort of groomed to believe that the world and corporate America was a certain type of way. And maybe that is true, but it shouldn't be that way. And just because that's kind of the way it is doesn't mean that's the what you should be perpetuating is like a bunch of lies. So early on, I was doing like I was basically a liaison between the media companies like online periodicals, whether it's like the Daily Mail or like local ABC News or whoever it was, television news, national news, local news, whoever it was, that basically bit on this story. So as a PR manager, you send out stories, press releases, and in hopes that, a journalist or a reporter or producer will want to cover that story. And then I acted as the intermediary between the media company and the users of the website. So we would give reporters case studies. And a case study is like someone who is being interviewed as a representative of, or not a representative, not a formal representative, but representing the users of the website, right? So, like a user, like a sugar baby or a sugar daddy on the website who is willing to talk to the media and talk about their experiences or whatever. So, I was the liaison between the media and those sugar baby users or sugar daddy users. And the sugar babies and sugar daddies were coached and paid and taught how to lie on camera. So that was part of my job. It was called casting. And
Yes.
it's funny because I was cast as one of these sugar baby case studies who was told to lie on camera. And at the time I didn't think it was a big deal. I thought it was like an acting gig, I thought it was a reality show. I like didn't think it was too much of a big deal. And then they taught me how to cast girls, which was essentially, tell them what to say and how to lie and pay them, but tell them not to tell the journalists that they were being paid, because of course that's a huge ethical violation for journalists. You can't have paid case studies, which of course I knew because I went to school for journalism before I worked for this company. So I of course knew all of that, but yet, at 22, your morals are a bit eroded, especially living in Las Vegas. So I didn't, yeah, I didn't see it as bad, as it was. I kind of just thought that's how the way things were, but, it took me a long time to come to terms with how actually terrible and awful it was, and I was.
Did you have like PR successes? Like I think you had billboards, or you mentioned Bethany and some of these other shows. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
could, okay, so you guys kind of did the talk show circuit. Is that what your goal was?
Literally anyone who wanted to cover us, and there were some big ones. Yeah, there was, like, Bethany, Meredith Vieira. Of course, these are, like, not even in production anymore. There was a Dr. Phil, like, there was
Oh, wow.
ABC, there was and you can go back and find a lot of these. I was on The Doctors, twice, which I don't think any of these are in production anymore. That's so funny. There was, a CNN special called This Is Life with Lisa Ling, and I talk about that one in my book because it was a bit of a glorification, and the case study that they used actually ended up having her career kind of ruined because she did go on TV as a sugar baby. That's a good one to watch, the CNN one. But yes, there was a lot of success. And during that 5-year time while I was working there, the website grew exponentially. Like I said, that the member base, you know, 40-fold.
Right,
uh,
right, amazing.
yeah.
But it's always presented to the public. Like a lot of these things are presented to the public as voluntary, and the kind of sordid elements underneath are never disclosed. And these journalists maybe aren't prying that deep to kind of see the actual real mechanics and the inequality of power between, a younger girl and this old, older shark, really kind of like old wealthy, if they're wealthy, kind of sharks. There is kind of a material advantage to the girls, though. Some have not traveled, so like traveling is available, and luxury items and money. I mean, that's generally real, though. That's a real exchange, isn't it?
Certainly, there are lots of, real sugar baby spoils that do come with this, lifestyle. But I think you said a lot I went just now, and one of the things you said was, if they're even really rich. And I think that is something very important to note, that the vast majority of men on these websites are not rich. They do not have any expendable income, and they are using the website as an agency to coerce young girls into sex at either very low rates or not being paid at all. And I think the advantages or the benefits to this sort of lifestyle and engaging in this for the girls is sort of like a gamble, but you gamble with your health and your safety and your sanity. And that is why I wrote the book, because I want to explain exactly where my mindset was, what I ended up getting, which was, yes, I got some money, yes, I got some gifts or whatever. But what that did to me, I can never be undone. When I was trying to find a sugar daddy, what I wanted was a rich boyfriend. And what I found was men who wanted to use me and give me small amounts of money to have sex with me whenever they wanted. And what I thought would happen is that, there might be some consequences to my actions. When I was young and 21 and not consequence minded, I thought, oh, like maybe there will be some consequences, but they really won't be that bad. And what I thought is maybe like I wouldn't get a job or like something like that. But what I didn't realize is the consequences actually take place within me. And that's, why these old men like young, naive girls, because they don't have that baggage yet. And they don't have the torment and the haunting experiences that I have. So yes, there are some spoils. And I like to equate it to driving a car on the freeway with insurance. Okay. So you can drive a car on the freeway without insurance, right? And you might make it from point A to point B unscathed. But if you don't, and if something happens and you don't have insurance, you're SOL. You don't have a lot of recourse. You don't have a lot of options. So that's what I like to equate it to, because sure, maybe you join the website, maybe you get a few $100s, maybe nothing happens to you. But if something bad does happen to you, you have absolutely no recourse. And what happens in most of these cases when women are raped or abused or worse, they don't go to the authorities because they're scared and ashamed. And if they do go to the authorities, sometimes the police will say, well, what were you doing on a site like that? Were you soliciting? Were you prostituting? And I know specifically several instances where the women who are victims are forced to sign away their rights to prosecute their abusers because they are scared of the ramifications, the legal ramifications that could fall upon them, because they were, of course, engaging in prostitution. So I think you have to really understand that. And the other side of it is, people don't really know what sex trafficking is. Let me break it down for you. Like, sex trafficking is when one person transports a prostitute, maybe across state lines, but to another place to then be paid for sex. So that is sex trafficking. And I think that I've experienced in my, Twitter arguments and such, girls don't know they were sex trafficked. They say, well, I wasn't sex trafficked. I'm like, you just said you went to a party where you were paid for sex. You were literally sex trafficked.
Wow,
And they
yeah.
don't know that. They really don't. And a lot of times it's unspoken, right? It's like, well, he gave me $1,000 and now I got to do something for it. And I want the next $1,000. So, I just don't think it really clicks to people. And like I said, sometimes nothing goes wrong. But if something even halfway goes wrong, you're in just such a detrimental position. And not only that, your abuser probably has money and power and status and friends at the police department, friends with congressmen. Like, you really don't know what you're getting into. And then that's why I'm doing this work, and that's why I wrote the book, because I think that young people will make the right decision if presented with the facts. I don't have any, I don't think I need to tell them what to do. I think they can make their own decisions. But the problem is they're being lied to and manipulated and coerced. And that is where I find the real crime.
Do you think that your experience is the same as other young women across the board, that they go in naive and then they're changed by the work that they do?
Yes, I do think that is the common experience. I think what happened to me is not that bad in terms of the stories that I heard and the things that I know. I think I had it pretty good, as comparatively to what a lot of these people have experienced. Not to say there weren't some people who just, think they had great experiences or whatever, but the more that you actually dig into it and the more stories you hear, you understand that yeah, I had it good. It's funny though, because people read the book and they think, oh, or they tell me, oh, I can't believe you've been through all that. Like, I feel so bad that that happened to you. And that was like an unintended consequence of writing the book. Like, I never wanted people to feel bad for me. But I always tell them, like, no, I had it good. I didn't have it that bad, because there are people who, and I explain about some of them in the book, there are people who literally had their lives completely ruined, because of this type of lifestyle and because of this website in particular.
The stories are legion, like they're out there. More drug use, a lot more drinking, um, different way of, depression, suicide. It gets dark, and a lot of some of these people get in real trouble. And I mean, did you ever find that, like, in your? I didn't get through the whole book, but like, I know there was this one story of girls do porn where like they thought they were going for some kind of uh like some kind, they were tricked, basically coerced into sex, and then they were filmed and it was all out. And these guys actually got arrested. It was one of those rare cases where the prosecutors went after the abusers. One of the guys had to leave the country. But I think that, was there any like time that the legal, legal ramifications, or people got arrested for doing this behavior? Like, it's clearly an exchange. Like, these are, you're breaking the law. Like, these are prostitution laws wherever, and trafficking, like trafficking across state boundaries, for that is also illegal. It's on the books. Were there many arrests or many people gone to jail, or any of the perps arrested?
Certainly, there are lots of cases, and I mean, you can find them.
Or Johns, I should say, Johns.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, with the website and why it still exists and how they've been able to obfuscate justice is, because of how the law works in regards to dating websites or websites that tout themselves as dating websites. So Section 230, which I'm sure some of your listeners and probably you are familiar with, is the legislation that kind of governs the whole internet. It's part of the Communications Decency Act of 1996, and it states that websites that facilitate, or websites that, or any website is not held legally responsible for the content that third-party users post. So basically, any website can say, "Oh, that was a third-party user. Like, I didn't do that," which is good, right? Because you don't want like Twitter to be fined for every little thing that everyone says. But it also ends up protecting dating websites and websites that set their users up for abuse. Essentially, it ends up kind of shielding them. So back in 2018, there was that new legislation that we mentioned called FOSTA SESTA, and it was actually two bills that were kind of doing similar things that were going through Congress at the same time. So they just like combined them into one, which actually says a lot in itself that there is two bills doing the same sort of thing, like trying to protect victims of sex trafficking and of prostitution from these types of websites. And like I said, that's when Backpage was shut down. So the new legislation is sort of like an amendment to Section 230, which was, very broad. And this new legislation, FOSTA SESTA, says that websites that facilitate, assist, and support sex work, prostitution, and sex trafficking are no longer covered by Section 230. They are not. They no longer avoid criminal prosecution. because they are participating in prostitution. They're doing that. And so back in 2018, there was a ton. That's when they dropped the arrangement formally. There was like a ton of different things done to the website. And if you go in the Wayback Machine, you can actually see all the different iterations of this website, because the website now is so much different from like when I worked there. And that's what they do, is they just keep changing it, just keep updating it. Now it's all about hypergamy, which is ironic because like hypergamy is about marriage, and this website has never been about marriage. It's actually impossible for most of these men to get married because they're already married. The majority of the men on the website are married. So it's really strange to think that like hypergamy would be anything these men would be doing, because they can't legally in the United States of America because they're already married. So I don't know. I don't know who they think they're kidding with this. But it's very transparent in my opinion.
Part of the deception. Is this really the owner right here? This guy right here, Brandon Wade, or is it somebody else?
Yeah.
That's him. Wow. So he supposedly, this is his, interesting. Started in 2006. They say their number's at 52 million now. And you interacted with this guy, right?
He was my boss.
He's your boss. Wow. And like this is happening amongst like Backpage, which got shut down. Like there was some very dark stuff involved in that. How much is this like what's going on at Seeking similar to like Epstein networks and these other crazy networks? Did you find any overlap or experience any overlap with these kind of elite trafficking networks?
Well, that's the thing, is they're all anonymous. The users are anonymous, and that is by design. So I personally don't know about any networks, but it's my opinion and belief based on the things I do know that, the network that Epstein had and the enterprise that P. Diddy had, people don't need that anymore, because they have websites like Seeking Arrangement where they can easily lure young, sometimes underage girls into prostitution unknowingly. So I believe that it is being used as a honeypot. I believe that it is being used for blackmail. And I believe that that's the reason it hasn't been shut down yet.
Wow.
But again, this is all speculation based on what I know.
Wow. So we're not saying it's happening, but there's the potential that the information on Seeking is being distributed. And a lot of those people, like we talk about Ashley Madison, like people committed suicide when people found out. That's another kind of strange site. I mean, how similar to you? Ashley Madison was not sugar babies. It was, people supposedly cheating. But I heard that there's a lot of deception in that whole thing too. Like there weren't as many. There was like 20-1 women or something like that. Like
Yeah, Ashley Madison was an interesting case. It was mostly bots. Like it mostly like was not real women. And there's this story out there about like this. I think she was Brazilian or Portuguese or something like that. And she got a job working for Ashley Madison, and it was her job to write fake profiles for fake users, for fake women. Yeah, like there was like not very many real women. But there actually is some lore with Seeking Arrangement and Ashley Madison. And this is how I remember it, or this is how it was told to me when I was working there, was that my former boss and the owner of Ashley Madison, Noel Biederman, I believe, they were friends at one point, and they sort of had differences of opinion. So Noel started Ashley Madison, and my former boss started Seeking. And Ashley Madison was more about cheating and like unethical, whereas Seeking Arrangement was more about like being open and honest about the fact that you're cheating on your wife. So there was some nuances there, and there was the hack, the Ashley Madison hack, because their data was not encrypted. So as far as I know, the Seeking Arrangement data is encrypted. So I guess they wouldn't have quite. And then there were people that tried to hack into the website. I remember while I was working there, like I think a couple times that happened. But they obviously didn't succeed, and like there was no like member data leak or whatever. But Ashley Madison, the founder, did end up starting Arrangement Finders, which was like a direct competitor to Seeking Arrangement. And Arrangement Finders did like a bunch of press. Like I think they were the first ones to have a billboard, and then Seeking like made an even more salacious, ridiculous billboard as an answer to that. So yeah, there is some history there and a lot of similarities. But I will say that One thing I wanted to note about Backpage was that when it was around, it was the preferred platform for prostitutes because they had reviews. So similarly to like Yelp, there are reviews of these different Johns and these different prostitutes. So most of the prostitutes on Backpage would only go out with men who had reviews, like could be vouched for by other prostitutes that they, had a fine experience with him or he paid on time or whatever it was. And when men would get bad reviews on Backpage, they would go to Seeking Arrangement because there were no reviews on Seeking and it's entirely anonymous. So what I believe I witnessed while I was working there is when Backpage was shut down, a lot of those people just went to Seeking Arrangement because there was no Backpage anymore. So yeah, I mean that's then, and there's actually some really good like reporting and podcasts and stuff about the unintended effects of FOSTA and shutting down Backpage, which were actually quite negative for the prostitutes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the legislation, it seems good. It seems like, oh, they're helping, like finally we're making a dent in this horrible problem. But then what actually ends up happening is those people are forced to use websites like Seeking Arrangement where there are no reviews, and they're forced to engage with traffickers, aka pimps, we call them colloquially. They are sex traffickers. They're forced to like get traffickers in order to stay safe and to get new bookings or whatever. So what really ended up happening, what was not helping them at all. It's my understanding.
Wow,
So yeah, just something to think about.
because it kind of like took away whatever the website or whatever. If there's a rating or Yelp review, it takes away the necessity of a pimp or somebody as an intermediary, which
Precisely.
means that the prostitute probably isn't going to make as much money either. So it's probably not even the safety thing. It's maybe also there's an economic aspect to it too.
Yeah, well, I mean, the main benefit to a lot of men that use Seeking Arrangement is the girls are not pros, so they're not charging the same rates, and they are not smart when it comes to how to be a professional prostitute, which is like you get a deposit and you have a bodyguard and like there's all these like different things that you should do, and then that's known in the prostitution community that you do these things. But the girls on Seeking aren't pros. They not only do they not believe that they're prostitutes, like they truly do not think that because they don't want to believe that. Like they don't want to be a prostitute. And that's why they join Seeking Arrangement, because it says all over, this is not a website for prostitution, this and that. But then if you are actually a user of the website, you get messages like 500 no condom. And people want to take you to different places, to parties where it's you are asked to take drugs, and basically they see what you're willing to do. So it just puts people in all sorts of really terrible situations where consent is implied, and it really doesn't matter what you want, because that's not why you're there.
Right, and you could end up like the worst type of thing. Like I think the guy, the Lisk killer from Gilgo Beach, he used a lot of these kind of like trafficking sites, or was in that community, and his victims were sex workers, and like that gets dark. Like that's super risky. Those girls were involved in super risky behavior. I mean, it's a risky behavior, right? I mean, being this is it's a roll of the dice.
Like I said, it is a gamble, in sheep's clothing, or like, a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's disguised as something else. It's disguised as glamour and luxury and benefits. But the reality is dark. It's trafficking. It's criminal.
What would you say if somebody was in your shoes back when you were 21? Like how I mean, you have like links on your site, your website, which is your full name, brookeurick.com, to ways to seek help, or there is ways to get out, right?
Certainly. I think there is this common misconception that, not all prostitutes are victims. Some of them are empowered and some of them just love having sex for money. And it's like, okay, like perhaps there is a 0.1% of this prostitution population that is empowered and just like loves being a prostitute. Like, okay, that does not negate the vast majority of people in this lifestyle who are victims, who want to get out, who do not like what they're doing, who are in a really terrible position financially, who are destitute, and who don't have a lot of options. And then that's the majority of these people. So if I could talk to these girls, and I do, I try to, I would tell them that these websites are for prostitution. If you go on this website and you have sex with a man and you receive money from him, you are a prostitute. You are having sex for money. And that's just what it is. So if they know that and they go into it with that mindset and they're fine with that, then that's, I mean, there are a lot of risks. Obviously, I might paint them some of the risks, but I just think it's important to really inform people of the reality of what's going on, because people can make their own decisions. I believe in liberty and people, doing what's right for them, but not under false pretenses, because that's just, especially for young people, young, sometimes underage girls who really truly don't believe this is prostitution. They think, oh, well, this rich guy is just going to give me some money. The fact that the website even exists in the first place and has all of this, candy coating all over it, it leads them to believe that it really is not prostitution. And if I join this website, I really won't be a prostitute, because if it was prostitution, then how would this website exist? Like, wouldn't the government shut down a website that's illegal? Like, prostitution is illegal. So this website must be legal because it exists. And here it is on CNN. So it must be legal, right? That's the first lie, that the website even exists in the first place. And that's what tricks people into joining it, is that they believe these lies. But it's also lies they want to believe, because who doesn't want to believe that there's this fantasy out there where a rich guy just sweeps you off your feet and gives you all this money? Like who doesn't want to believe that? And of course, they don't want to be prostitutes. So it's like they kind of have the wind at their back when it comes to joining a website like this and believing all of the lies that are told by these types of websites. So I mean, that's all I want to do, is just tell them the real truth.
Right. And so you're saying, as somebody who's kind of been in that life, that 99% of the women are there for financial reasons, not because they want to do that job. Would you agree with that? Or is that a
Oh,
true
yes.
statement? Okay.
100%. I would say all of them are there for the financial gain.
So
There's
like the happy prostitute is complete fiction, complete myth.
I have never met her.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's another. That's. I mean, it's kind of like a sad thing. Like when you see these workers, like these are people in like financial distress, and it's like, it's just kind of like
Yeah.
they're just not in a great situation.
I think a lot of it is coming to light with the OnlyFans epidemic, as I'll call it. Do you remember the little documentary about Lily Phillips, who was like the OnlyFans model who had sex with 100 men in a day or whatever it
Yes, I
was?
think I've seen that on social media. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if
she's from
you
England.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you I mean, well, first of all, the problem is that these OnlyFans models fall into a very similar trap that the people who join Seeking Arrangement do. Prostitution is more quiet because you don't have to like put it on the internet. But OnlyFans is quiet in a different way because you don't have to meet the people physically. But the lie that they tell you on OnlyFans is that you're going to make all this money and all you have to do is like film yourself doing whatever. And so the desensitization to porn and all of this, it leads people to believe, oh, well, I can just make some quick money. But the real truth is that most of these women are making free porn, essentially free amateur porn, because most of them do not get paid hardly any money at all. Certainly not enough money to make it worth it. But back to my original point about Lily Phillips, who, if you watch that documentary, she is literally in tears by the end of the 100 men. And what she says, I'm paraphrasing, but what she says is, yeah, I just like have been disassociating from my body all day.
Wow.
And I think that that is the through line with a lot of these prostitutes and people who do OnlyFans work and all of this. Maybe some of them do just really love it and live for it, but I think the majority of them are really skilled at disassociating from their bodies, which is a skill that's usually learned at a young age from people who are sexually abused. And that is a skill that I learned. So I can certainly speak to that, and to the problem with disassociating from your body for sex, because women, we're not wired to have casual sex, and that is a lie that has been told to us, that we can be empowered and we can have sex just like men, but that's not what our bodies think. Our bodies don't believe that at all, and that's led to this just, like, huge discrepancy in the dating climate right now, and, lots of women not getting married and not being in relationships because of all of the lies that society has told us, and most of them, in my opinion, are to keep women as cogs in the workforce and to keep them opening their legs and having sex easily, with men. So, it just seems like a lot of these policies and practices were not to benefit women at all. They're actually to
Right.
women's detriment.
So the seeking is within a larger cultural context of these ideas that are pernicious. They're actually not pro women. They're sold as feminism or pro women or freedom, but it's a fiction. Like women and men are supposed to be together in relationships and things like that. And that whole freedom is actually a kind of slavery. Maybe you could see it as that.
Well, the absolute irony is that they tout this lifestyle as being empowering, and you get to have agency over your body, but the reality is the exact opposite, is that you don't get any agency in these situations. It is not empowering. It makes you feel worthless and unlovable. And that's the reality for these women. And then now they try and tout hypergamy, which is
Right.
which is the opposite of, like, empowerment almost. It's like it's okay, it's like, which is it? Like, pick
Right.
one, pick a lane.
Right. Oh, it's interesting. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for sharing your book. And this is your website right here, Brooke Urick. So I'll put that in the show notes. Is there anything you'd like to add or anything we missed or I missed? We're at the 45-minute mark.
Oh, no, this was absolutely lovely. Thank you for anyone who's listened this long. If you like the sound of my voice, you can certainly get the audiobook narrated by me. And the book is available on Amazon, or Barnes& and Noble. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram.
Right. So you have a YouTube channel. It's in my private chat. It's Brooke Urick Says right on YouTube.
That's
So
right, yeah.
you got the website. I'll put a link to Amazon for an audio, and you've got a paperback, and then the website as well as Brooke Urick, Urick. And
Yes.
and again, the full title of the book is Wink Wink Nudge Nudge: Sexual Exploits and Secrets from Inside a Sugar Daddy Website. And again, the author and guest is Brooke Urick. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, William.
All right, stay there.